Cyberpunk 2077 is the most amazing disappointment I've ever played. When I got my first real gaming PC many years ago, I had enough budget left over to purchase just one game. I wanted something that would test my new PC to its full extent, but also a game that would keep me immersed and entertained. That game ended up being, at the time, the newly released Witcher 3. Little did I know or expect that this studio and game would quickly become my new obsession. Every spare minute was spent in the world of The Witcher and its incredible expansions. I spent over 400 hours just on one playthrough. I became so immersed in the game that I started doing research on the studio and realized that these guys were exactly what the AAA gaming scene needed. Folks against things like DRM and all about ownership and giving consumers the best possible bang for their buck. They seem trustworthy and competent and honest, not a way you can often describe a studio of that size. Over time, I realized that the love and praise was the common sentiment, and that these guys were honestly one of the few big studios that gamers could put their trust in. So when the studio announced that their next big IP, Cyberpunk 2077, was going to revolutionize the RPG genre, I took them at their word. We never had a reason not to believe anything they told us, so why should we start now? If CDPR said they were going to make one of the greatest games of all time, then that's what they were going to do. I played The Witcher 3, I had no reason to doubt them, neither did anybody else. Over the coming months and years, we would get many teasers and trailers showcasing what the game would be and what the team said that the studio had envisioned that the game was supposed to turn out like. They spoke of and showed off features that were near impossible, but again, this was coming from CDPR, one of the most trusted companies in gaming at the time, so I had no reason to be too skeptical of what was being shown or told to me, and neither did anybody else. As we came closer to approaching release day, CDPR would release these Night City talks. The devs would host these talks and showcase the upcoming game and its features. They spoke of things like NPCs with daily schedules and dynamic interactions around the city, life path choices that would heavily affect your playthrough and the story options, seamless open world interactions, smart enemies with unique AI, companion systems, lots of other things to make this RPG feel alive and innovative, something like we had never seen before. But then the game released, and in reality, we got NPCs that walk aimlessly in loops on a track with no real interaction with the world, no real schedules or behaviors, life path choices that barely affect anything outside the intro, and a few dialogue choices or quests here and there. We got an open world with minimum interactivity, most shops and buildings just serving as functional props, enemies with stupid behavior patterns, no companion system, instead just a couple quests while you're joined by somebody, seriously underbaked RPG elements, and barely fucking worked. Like honestly, when the game released, everybody was just having an issue. The game CDPR had been showing off to us was nowhere to be found. The game they were telling us about was non-existent. Instead, we got something that felt undercooked, rushed, and broken. Some might argue that nobody could live up to the hype surrounding Cyberpunk, but I'd like to remind everybody that that hype was created by broken promises told by the studio. The vertical slice that had been being shown off as a finished product before release was vastly different from the final product presented. This unfinished release was not the fault of most of the devs, but instead a few key members of the studio trying to appease their shareholders and quotas. Their reputation was broken, and they quickly became scrutinized by most of the industry and its consumers. The most trusted company in gaming had lied to us and broken all of our trust. Luckily for CDPR, this would not be how their story ended. After release, they spent time fixing and patching what was broken, listening to player feedback, and trying to fix the game into what was originally promised. They largely succeeded in doing this, and over the years won back the hearts of the fans and the industry by providing consistent free updates, patches, fixes for anything that was broken, most of the bugs being ironed out, and basically bringing the game closer to what was once originally envisioned by the studio. These efforts were recognized, and it seemed their blunder had been forgiven. Eventually, they would come to their 2.0 release, which promised to be everything the original game was supposed to be, with most of its missing features being added and all of the bugs being ironed out. A new beginning and clean slate for the studio moving forward. This is where the story for this video begins. I never touched Cyberpunk 2077 until its official 2.0 release. When the game originally released and the early reviews showed off a broken game full of bugs and underbaked systems, a game that ran so poorly that Sony had to remove it from their online store, I thought CDPR had given in to their corporate overlords, and I had decided to wash my hands of the company and skip the release. During the time after the release, when I seen they were doing everything to restore players' faith in their studio, I started to pay attention again. I realized that this broken game and broken promise was not just the fault of the devs, but just a few key decision makers. I forgave them and appreciated everything they were doing to redeem themselves. So when 2.0 came along, I thought this is my time to finally jump into this project they refused to give up on. I loved a good comeback story, so let's see how this goes. I went in with as little expectations as possible, but in the back of my mind was ready and hoping to be blown away. Spoiler, I was not. It took me about 2 hours in Night City to realize this was not the game that was originally promised. Then I quickly came to another realization that I had overhyped the game in my head, and that the game I had been envisioning in my head was next to impossible to make, and it would likely be another generation before something like this could even exist. I reached the final credits around the 50-hour mark, and just sat there with the most confused thoughts I've ever maybe had about a game. This was and is clearly an amazing game. It's innovative and intuitive, and full of amazing features and story. I could see the care and love and effort bleeding through during the gameplay and cutscenes alike. The amount of player freedom and choice mixed in with the variety of missions and the scope of the whole thing. This was clearly an amazing experience, so why did I walk away feeling so disappointed? I think that it's largely my own fault, but CDPR is not without its faults here either. If you step away from the game and approach it without any prior knowledge or marketing, and just jump in with zero expectations or knowledge, I can confidently say that I think this would be a 10 out of 10 game. But if you step into it with the knowledge that CDPR had promised us one of the most robust and lifelike RPGs to ever exist, and instead we got a very good action game with some well-made RPG elements included, then I think it's hard not to feel a sense of wonder of what could have been. This is where I blame CDPR, and why I think they might be repeating this mistake now with The Witcher 4. If they wouldn't have promised me all the things they couldn't have possibly delivered on, then I would have never built up that expectation in my head. I would have just gone in expecting an amazing game, and that's it. But I expected something revolutionary and genre changing, and while it clearly paves the road for some of those ideas to be eventually realized, I don't think it ever quite met its mark. So is this my fault for believing in the hype created by CDPR and building an unrealistic expectation in my head? Or is this CDPR's fault for overselling what the game would be? I feel it's fair to say the correct answer is both. If you look at the current state of Cyberpunk, I think they've built the best game anyone could ever build with the tools and time that was allotted to them, and I think it makes me super excited for what's to come in the future. But as mentioned before, if you look at the new Witcher 4 vertical slice, it seems that the company is once again close to the boundaries of starting to oversell something they have no idea if they can even create on the level they've promised yet. I really hope we don't see this marketing cycle and mistake repeated, and instead they let the gameplay speak for itself, or not announce things until they know for sure they can be implemented on the levels they're promising to us. I think Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the greatest action RPGs ever created, but I also think it's a perfect showcase of why overhyping your game is never good, and why you shouldn't make promises until you know you can keep them. I never got around to playing the expansion, and I've heard it's even better than the base game, but I think I've had my fun and fill from this game for now. Most of what was originally promised has been put into the game in one way or another, and for the most part, the game that they were seeking to make feels like it's finally done and completed. But I still walked away feeling underwhelmed. I felt The Witcher 3 felt much more alive and lived in, and just overall like a more full realization of the project they set out to make, where Cyberpunk in many ways feels compromised. There is a lesson to be learned here, which is don't believe in hype or let your own expectations ruin what would otherwise be a good thing. I've learned this lesson now, and because of it, we'll be paying as little attention to The Witcher 4 marketing as possible to go in with no preemptive thoughts or expectations. I don't think CDPR has all the trust they once had, but it seems for the most part their reputation has been restored, and it's been well earned. They've shown time and time again that they care about their projects and fans beyond what any normal company normally does, and I think they've created an amazing product with Cyberpunk 2077, and if they take all their mistakes and lessons learned from the first game, then the second game will be something even more special, and perhaps closer to what my unfair expectations and their initial promises originally were. So was Cyberpunk 2077 overrated, underrated, or both? I think it's fair to say it was both. I think CDPR overhyped the game, and that built up an unrealistic expectation in my head, and I judged the game based on that, and I think a lot of other people did too, which is kind of the fault of CDPR, but it's also our own faults, and then nobody could have possibly delivered on that. So I think you got to kind of look at it both ways. I think if you go into it today without all the hype from the previous marketing, you're going to find that that's one of the best action RPGs you can play probably. But once again, I only spent about 50 hours with it from start to finish. By the time I end seeing the credits, I was done. But if you go in and play all the mods, if you go in and play the expansion, if you go in and do all that stuff, I'm sure there's a more deeper layered game there. But like I said, I'm just judging it at its face value. The base game with the base features, 2.0 release, that's it. And to me, that game felt incredibly underwhelming. But I have to recognize it's definitely an amazing action RPG. So, conflicted thoughts, fence sitter thoughts, I don't know, call them what you want. I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for saying anything I've said in this video because people just want to hear an echo chamber of their own thoughts echoed back to them. And when you have a different opinion than someone else, they don't want to have a fun discussion about it. They normally just want to tell you how you're wrong. So if you really love this game and I said something that pissed you off, sorry. And if you hate this game and you think I'm giving it too much of a break, then also sorry. I don't know what to say. This is just my opinions and it's how I feel. And I'm not going to be dishonest about them. So that's that. If you guys want to have more talks like this, come join me on Discord. Come hang out on my Twitter. Come do anything that is interactive with me because I really love talking about this stuff with you guys. And it's literally the reason I do it. I don't make a lot of money off of this. YouTube sends me a little check for $100 a month. That's going to get donated to a dog shelter. I could give a shit less about the money. I just like having the fun discussions. So come talk about it so that I can actually have some fun discussions because that's the whole point why I sit and make these videos in the first place. All right, cool. I love you all. I appreciate you guys for sticking around. If you did make it to the end of this video, I appreciate you. I love you all as usual. And that's it. I'm out. Ciao.